of doing the podcast. Can I call you back in a minute? Okay, bye-bye.
When the missus calls, you answer.
Look, that was the second time she's called.
So back to it. And welcome to the Constructing Art Podcast with me, Josh.
And me, Kenny.
Where we give you the information to build your work of art.
Yeah, basically we want you to build the house of your dreams, get to the end of it, and not be surprised at how crap it actually is. That's essentially it. I mean, the reality, being nice about it is that we want you to build your house, and you'll build your house, and you want to build your home, and you want it to be good. A lot of people get there and don't realise it's actually been built like crap. And
yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, there is a price point for these. But
again, also true.
What are we talking about today, Josh?
Today we're talking about roofing profiles. So your Coro, your trim, span deck, clip dock, your clip dock, whoa, Freudian slip, clip lock, and standing seam.
Nice. Very good, very good. So before we get into it, as always, a shout out to Primal, because Primal is our sponsor. And take it away, Josh.
Yeah, as Australia's most trusted constructing.
Looking to take your construction business to the next level? At Primal Agency, you're partnering with experts that know your business. And that's half the battle. As Australia's most trusted construction marketing team, these guys are all about evolving your business. If you're looking to scale, talk to the crew at Primal today. Or check out primalagency.com.au.
That's much better.
There we go. That's a bit of fun.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay, so we're talking about a bunch of things. So the intro, we've done, you know what we're talking about, and now we're going to move on to the advert. No, we've done that.
Yep, that bit's done.
So you're building a house.
Yeah.
And
now you got to put a roof on it.
It has to have a roof. Yeah. Otherwise, it's building a fish tank.
That's it, very much. So a couple of options that you have in order to install a roof on your home. You've got corrugated iron, which is the nice, lovely, wavy one that everyone sees. You've got trim deck, which is for more lower pitch roofs,
generally speaking,
and span deck, which is a corrugated look but with the trim style ribs. You've got clip lock or concealed fixed style roofing.
Yep.
And then standing seam, which brings you to the more architectural styles.
Yeah, so starting with Coro, like why, or well, not Coro, but starting with all these different profiles, why is it that there is all these? Well, first of all, because you can change the look of it. If you go back early days, corrugated iron is what was imported from England. Lysart brought it in from England, and you had these, essentially, if you look at the Queenslander home, you have these short run length sheets of galvanized steel that were put on the roof, and so that was the corrugated profile. Then they copied and they used, you could get like a corrugated style of sheet in asbestos, which was called Super 6.
Yes.
But that round kind of a shape, that's essentially corrugated. Now, when you're looking at Coro, what are the benefits of it? It's the most affordable.
Most economical.
It goes down to 5-degree pitch on a roof, so it can be used on most houses. It's easy to cut. It's easy to work with. It spins and rotates, and like when you cut out of a hip in a valley.
Yeah, less waste can be involved because it's uniform across the entire cover of the sheet. So yeah, like you said, you can cut some off of the hip and then put it onto another hip somewhere else on the roof.
So most people would confuse, and I shouldn't say most people, but a lot of people confuse, this includes architects, corrugated, and they call it Colorbond. So people go, we want a Colorbond roof. I'm like, what profile? Oh, we want Colorbond. It's like, yes, but what profile Colorbond roof do you want? We want Colorbond. I don't know, that round one that you see on the roof. That's called corrugated. Or custom orb is another name.
Custom orb is the other name for it. So that the custom orb or corrugated iron profile is made from Colorbond steel. All of the profiles that we're going to be talking about today are made from Colorbond steel.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that that's the only place that you can buy it from, but that's what we use. We love Colorbond. We know that it has a great warranty. We know that it will perform for years and years, and we know that we can, in the work that we do, we know we can deliver with confidence.
Yes.
So we know that there's other products, other steel manufacturers out there that may be good. I just don't know. right? I just don't know that they're going to be good. So when someone asks for a roof, we're very, very happy to push Colorbond because of the fact that we know we can deliver. So that starts with corrugated iron roofing.
Yes.
So essentially, any roof that has a pitch over 5 degrees, you can put corrugated iron on it.
Yeah, like most builders will use like a 25-degree pitch roof, and they'll have corrugated iron on the roof.
Yeah. So your typical roof is corrugated iron.
Mm-hmm.
So then moving on to the next one, which is trim deck or trapezoidal roofing.
Yes.
That is crest fixed, which is basically
any roof that's under 5 degrees down to 2 degrees.
Yeah, so this has a flat pan section with then a rib which goes up 24 or 27 mil depending on who you're buying it from.
Manufacturer you use, yeah.
And that goes down to 2 degrees.
Yep.
And it can perform very well down to 2 degrees if the system is put in place. It also can be used, with the flat roofs. Essentially, we talked about parapet caps for box gutters in the previous podcast, and if you want to know more about that, just go back to episode 2. However, when trying to hide roofs behind caps and things like that, trim deck's a very good one to use if you can get away with the 2 degree. If you don't need to go down to 1 degree pitch, then hang out at the 2 and 3, and trim deck is a much cheaper option.
Well, trim deck and Corro can basically be interchanged price as a price point. They're essentially the two bread and butter profiles that all roll formers are going to pump out. So their cost is exactly the same.
They're almost identical, aren't they?
Yeah, their cost is exactly the same.
Yeah, so essentially trim deck over time is something that was being used on factories.
Sheds.
And sheds, yeah. So definitely a shed. If you think of a country shed, a 4-bay Titan shed, we'll use them because it was the advertising that they put out. Essentially, that's what will be on the roof. Sometimes on the walls, but predominantly on the roof for those. So yeah, that's another option. It's the same price point as Corro. Just helps you achieve different looks. You can still put trim deck on a 25 degree pitch, 30 degree pitch roof.
Yeah, our old one of your properties has a trim deck roof on it.
Yeah, so yeah, where we ran our office out of for a while at MyCladders, we put a trim deck roof on that. And gee, you left your phone notification.
I know, that was great. Well done.
Nailed it. So yes, we took a corrugated iron roof off and we put a trim deck roof on it. It just gave it a bit more of an architectural look to it.
Yeah.
And we did that in Colorbond Monument. So you can achieve a different look by using trim deck on a generic style hip and valley type roof as well.
Yeah.
And if you choose the right color, it can look really, really good. So essentially, there's your price point. So your standard one would be Corro. That's what everyone uses. Trim deck, well, it's not standard. It costs the same.
Yeah. But
it's an option that you can use to make your house stand out a little bit more, I think.
That's it. Then we go on to spandeck, which is also a trapezoidal style of roof sheeting.
Again, crest fixed, so it's not concealed.
It's also crest fixed that looks like corrugated iron, but with the same shape of the ribs as trim deck, which can also go down to 2 degrees because it has that larger rib, but reduced.
But it goes down to 3 degrees. Pretty sure it's 3 degrees.
Depends.
Again, some manufacturers
depends
long
on
span.
All of these depend on which manufacturer, what they recommend.
So I think the ones that we're quoting here are from Lysart's names. They're Lysart names.
They're the more common names used by most builders anyway.
So Stramit has a long span which goes down to 2 degrees and spandeck is 3 degrees. So essentially, I don't recommend using spandeck in those at the low pitches. I would, if someone wanted to do that, I'd still lean them away from that and say keep it up or go with the trim deck. You just get a lot more water flow with it and less problems.
Yeah, that's very true.
But that's what. So spandeck is an option. We put that style on house the Buena Vista house for Sean Lockyer. He put long span on, which is Stramit's version, and that looks really nice. Instead of a corrugated iron, he did that. So we won't stick too long on that. That's just basically, like you said, a square Corro, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So then it takes us to our concealed fixed roofing styles like clip lock, top deck, speed deck, ultra, things like that, Metlock, which are all installed using a hidden clip. Yeah,
well, they're used to go right down to flat, basically, 1 degree pitch roof. And Josh came out with the names. They're all the different roll formers. But essentially, we're going to just use it clip lock, which is concealed. Clip lock, it's essentially 230 millimeters between each rib, center to center, with a flat pan in between them. And when you're laying the roof out, you put the clip down on the roof, and then you stand on the top of the sheet, clip it down, and then you don't have to fix anything to it. You will have fixings up at the aprons and other flashings. But the roof, because it's so low, it can handle a lot more water, and you don't have the deterioration of the screws having any impact on the roofing profile. So it's really good to use that in closer to the beach areas, or essentially where you get a lot of rainfall and you're trying to go as flat as possible with the roof.
Yeah, trying to build those big parapets and have that nice facade, but minimize it.
Yeah, 100%. So at the moment, we're doing a school out at Plainlands, which has got Speed Deck Ultra on there, which is a Stramit product, and that the roofs are 7 degrees, but it's a look they were going for. So talking about yes, it performs down to 1 degree, but it also gives an economic version of the next profile we're talking about, which is the standing seam.
It also reduces maintenance because you don't have to worry about the screws deteriorating over time. So for maintenance purposes, using the clip lock roof is more maintainable for the school over a longer period of time.
Yeah, that's true. Well, they've got it on the walls and the roof, so it does both. So where screws fail, you've got to walk over that. And also with the clips, this brings another point, thanks for that. Where the clip sits underneath, the sheets can actually expand and contract on those clips. They'll move up and down. And we talked about expansion and contraction in one of our previous podcasts. And we will continue because it's a major thing when it comes to roofing and roofing maintenance and the design of a roof. But the clip sits underneath the roof sheet, the sheet sits over the top, and it enables it to move freely without issues for maintenance. So where you have screwed in roofs over time, especially if you're doing schools like with 19 metre sheets, if you had that screwed in, then you're going to have a lot of movement on all the screws and the rubbers and things like that. So yeah, definitely from a maintenance point of view, a very good extra, very good there. So from a design point, it's good for the maintenance. It also gives you an economic version of a standing seam.
Yeah, so standing seam roofing profiles, which are the more architectural profiles, there's a few that can be used. You've got the Longline 305, which is from Lysart, which has the 3 ribs essentially, and that's on a concealed clip. That is made out of a 0.8. So Longline's made out of 0.7 mil. Base metal thickness. So it's really rigid
and strong, and has a longer life expectancy. Not that it carries a longer warranty.
No. But it does have a longer expectancy.
And with that, you don't get oil canning. So the Longline doesn't oil can, although it still needs to be installed properly. So that's one of the most expensive. But then carry on, Josh.
Yeah, it's only manufactured by Lysart in Sydney. So being up here in Queensland, transport can become an issue if you're doing it on a long roof span where you need to get that sheet on a semi-trailer.
Especially if you're in Perth, they don't make it over there. Imagine trying to get 20 metre sheets to Perth.
That'd be a nightmare. Then you've got more readily available profiles like N-Seam or Harlan Trade, which comes in nail strip. Which comes in 2 different variants. You've got a nail strip or a snap lock.
Yep.
So nail strip is fixed using a tiny little strip that has little holes in it that you can then just fix directly through and into the roof battens or onto the ply. Snap lock has a clip.
Yep.
Same sort of deal.
It sits over the top, you screw it down, so it gives it a little bit more expansion contraction ability.
Yes. And then major issues that can occur with those profiles is the bigger that you make the pan, the more prone to oil canning.
Yeah.
And the more things that need to be taken into account, like when you're using the largest profile, the 465 or whatever it is.
465 So
465 needs to be installed onto a ply roof, whereas 320 and below you can install on roof battens spaced at 450 cm.
Yeah, so there's a lot more when it comes to the standing seam. There's a lot more pre-thought because it's not a normal product. So when it comes to standard roofing profiles, you wouldn't say they're standard. They're definitely specialist products which need to be installed by people that have the experience, that understand. I mean, that's what we do. So we're bantering on about how hard it is so that no one else gets the work, right? But essentially, it's set up well. The standing seam products, they just look amazing.
Yeah.
They are the
bee's knees.
They're 100% the best. But
Yeah.
they are what, when you drive along and go, wow, look at that roof. That's because it's standing seam, generally speaking. You don't. It makes your house, the roof, stand out and makes it a feature of the house. So there is other ones. So Imperial's another one, which is a seam lock. Not that much is used here in Queensland.
No, and that's a profile that 100% needs to be installed all the time on a slide roof.
Yep.
Which again, like, adds a significant additional cost to.
Yeah. So when
To
you're looking at
build.
budget,
Yeah.
a lot of government buildings use that, and stadiums and things like that will go to those sorts of profiles too, because I don't know, they've got some stupid budget. And architects love that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But you get the same, in saying that, the Imperial product, which is beautiful, you get the same look as the standing seam nail strip products. So there's a bunch of different ones that you can use from different suppliers. They have a whole heap of different names, but essentially what we're talking about is standing seam.
Yeah.
And so basically that covers off all the roof profiles that you can get when it comes to tin. And I'm just going to briefly talk about this. Decromastic, which don't use. It was used massively in the late 80s, early 90s. Decromastic is a sheet metal tile.
Yeah, pressed metal tiles.
And you'd know about this if you got up onto a roof and you thought it was tile and it started crunching underneath. And yeah, and guaranteed to leak. They are horrible. That is my opinion on the number that we've had to rip off and install new roofs over, because you can't repair them.
No.
Maybe you can, but you need to weigh about 45 kilos to be able to walk on it properly.
Yeah.
You know, all
Yeah,
90
very
kilos of Kenny. That's
Yeah, it's just gonna go straight through. So things to consider when you're designing your home is, what type of style of roof are you looking at? Are you looking at like a big high pitched roof? Do you want low pitched? Do you want to have parapets where you can't see the roof at all? Selecting the right profile for the pitch of your roof is essential, because we've seen a lot of architects specify, I want corrugated on everything, and then have roofs that are 2 degrees, and Corro just can't do it.
Yeah.
You can get an alternative product, which is a larger ribbed Corro, there's Maximus 22 and Maximus 33, which are a 22 mil and a 33 mil high.
Because
rib.
Corro is normally 18 mil.
Yes.
So
these higher pans allow for a larger amount of water flow, which allows them to go to a lower pitch.
doesn't make it necessarily a great idea. However, if you're trying to keep that look and it's obvious, like say you're looking down on the house from above and you want to keep that corrugated iron look, then they enable the design of the house to use that. So, they can go down to 2 degree.
Yeah. The Maximus 33 can go down to, I'm pretty sure, 2 degrees.
Yeah. However, their price point is closer to, it's above
higher.
clip lock, isn't it? So it does cost more, but it enables you to get the same corrugated. So if the corrugated is the style you want, say you're going, what's this, the new fad, the white Hampton style house, and you want that soft rounded finish, you want a corrugated iron with half round gutters and things like that, then that there would tick that box, because you don't want to go putting trim deck sharp lines on a house that you're trying to keep nice and soft.
Yeah.
So looking
Very
at
much
style. However, go the opposite. If you were wanting to create those harsh, sharp lines and get the that dark, like the monuments, the woodland greys, and the new blue gum.
Yeah, blue gum. Yeah.
Yeah, blue gum. These new looks, these looks that are very architectural, and with the dark colours, sharp lines look
Stand
a lot.
out.
Yeah,
they stand out
better.
a lot better.
Then you could definitely, that's where you look at the Corro, that's where you look at the trim deck, your span deck and your clip lock. So depending on your color, depending on your style of what you're trying to achieve, there's different reasons for choosing the different ones, opposed to the angle, the pitch of the roof.
Other things you can, if you are trying to achieve this seamless look of the roof just traveling over the hips and valley, not over the hips, more the ridges.
Yeah.
On a straight sort of gable roof, you can what's called mansarding the standing seam profiles, where it looks like one sheet. Well, because it is kind of one sheet over the top, and there's no flashing or roll top ridge.
Yeah, that's where you go to the highest end of your budget.
Yeah. Or you're transferring from the roof down onto the wall in one piece as well, which is the other way to do it.
So going back to Coro, so if you want it to look like an aircraft hangar where it's round over the top. So if you're going to try and spring curve the sheets and do like a rounded thing.
Coro is the best option to try and spring curve.
Yeah. So like in Queensland, I'm sure it happens in other places, but Queensland's quite known for its bullnose verandas.
Yeah.
Which that's corrugated iron, but made out of, instead of a 0.42 or 0.48.
It's made out of 0.6 curving quality.
Yeah. So, and you can use that in a few different ways. One is, say, like on your veranda for bullnose. Gives you a stronger veranda. You'll need less structure than a typical veranda, because it's got more structural integrity to it, because it's thicker and it's curved. The other way to use it is on a ridge cap. So where you have a corrugated roof and you want to wrap it from one side to the other with no ridge cap, you can use that as a curved ridge cap.
Yeah, which we did out at the Raf Amberley, yeah.
Yeah, the airbase. But now you can't do that with trim deck, because trim deck will just crinkle and...
They used to do a thing called crank curving, but no one does it anymore, which gives the clip lock or the trim deck the ability to curve, but you see these big massive lines all throughout it, and it can
ugly.
be a bit
it's kind
unsightly.
of like a bit like oil canning.
Yeah.
So that's kind of those. And so from a style perspective, it depends on the rest of your house. So on the page which is affiliated with this podcast, we've got all the different ones there that you can have a look at. And on our gallery, you'll see at the MyCladders gallery, you'll see all the different types of profiles of roofing and that you can choose from. So essentially looking at your style of what you're trying to achieve and then working out which one of those will fit into your budget. And the reason we go on and on about style is because it isn't just corrugated iron. You have a whole range. And I tell you, if you go away from corrugated iron, you will make your house stand out.
It's 100% not going to look like every other house on the street.
Yeah. So your project homes, the reason I say project home is your big builders, high volume builders throughout Australia will use tiles and corrugated iron, and that will be that. So when you say I'll get a Colorbond roof, you're getting a Colorbond corrugated iron roof. You can change that to other ones. Just know that you can change that.
It's not your only option.
Yeah. So from a budget perspective, now we've probably covered this off from start to finish. Basically, standing seam is your most expensive.
Yeah.
And corrugated and trim deck are your cheapest.
Your entry level, yeah.
And it's not just because of the cost of the material. It's also because Coro and trim are installed at the same rate. So most roofing companies use contractors, and the install rate for those is X, and it's the same. Whereas they're the
two easiest ones to install.
100%. So then you go to standing seam, and the cost to install that is a lot higher, because there's a lot more work involved in getting that installed properly. And then also speed deck, and the clip lock speed deck is very similar. Span deck you'll pay a little bit more for, because there's a bit more to do. It's a bit more difficult to work with, a bit harder to cut. And then taking into account for the budget purposes, depending on where you live and the material, and I'm going to talk very quickly. Josh, you got XRW, Ultra, and stainless steel as your options.
Yep.
With the profiles. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So stainless steel Colorbond is usually they give a couple of options. The two main ones are surf mist and deep ocean. Though surf mist is more readily available than deep ocean, and that's when you're right on the water. You're a marina or what have you. Then you've got Ultra.
When you're looking for maximum corrosion protection.
Yes.
Absolute maximum protection, you go to stainless steel.
Yeah, that's it. Then you go to Ultra, which is up to about 500 meters from the surf. Gives you a lot better coverage for the salt water there.
For warranty, right?
For warranty purposes. Also only available in a couple of colors: shell grey, surf mist, deep ocean.
You've got Monument in Ultra now.
Yeah, you do too.
Yeah.
Monument's now in Ultra, so now they've got
generally the most popular colours.
Yeah, they've started bringing that in. Then after about 500 meters to a kilometer plus, you've just got your standard everyday XRW.
Yeah. So basically, you can jump on and we'll put a link in the description, or it'll be somewhere. You'll find it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There's a really good calculator for warranty on the Colorbond website that you can check out. That will tell you what profile what material you need for your product
to achieve a warranty for your distance from the ocean.
Yeah, for your work of art that you're building. So essentially, that's basically just covering that. So that leads into maintenance. So
yes,
we've also touched base on this. Maintenance is if you've got stainless steel, you still need to maintain it. If it's Ultra, you still need to maintain it. And if it's Coro, you still need to maintain it. They all equally need the same amount of maintenance. So those three don't really count. If we talk about maintenance, there's not really much to talk about. We'll just talk about clip lock has the least. The concealed fixing ones have the least.
Yeah, it's more like they give a bigger warranty for roofing, because it's usually going to be washed when it rains.
Yeah. Opposed to wall cladding.
Yeah, which is about half.
Yeah, it's 15 years.
You basically have to, if it's if you've got Colorbond wall cladding, you need to get the hose out, just wash it down, and remove all the dirt and salt, depending on where you live. The same thing should be done with if you're in a highly bushland area where there's going to be trees and stuff falling down, like we spoke about with using gutter guard on your gutters to try and minimize the build up in your gutters. It's still advisable to wash down the roof, because you can still get other things that can add a bit of reduce the life of your roof.
My house, I've got gum trees, heaps of gum trees out the back, and so we get like that sort of black sooty type of thing build up. We've got a 7-degree pitch roof, and ours is the Trapezoidal, the trim deck style roof. I have that, and so every 2 years, get up there and water blast the roof down from the top down, just clean it off, because it starts that build up. So that's something that needs to be done because of where I live. If you're in somewhere else, you're not going to need to do that.
Yeah, it all depends on what you've got around where you live.
So maintenance in regard to rivets, flashings, silicons, and things like that on the profile of each of the sheets. Like I said, clip lock is probably the least amount of maintenance, because it's got the least screws, the least fixings in it, and you're more reliant on you're less reliant on the fixings to
keep your roof on.
Yeah. But basically, the maintenance of all the roofing, that's a whole nother podcast altogether. It's just making sure that you go over it every so often. You look at it, you check it out, especially before storm season, that you check out that there's no loose flashings. And if you're able to get up on your roof, just go for a walk around. And if everything looks right to you, then it's probably fine. If things look out of sorts, you might want to look at that and then get some advice as to whether or not you need to do anything with it. Yeah. Because storms do put pressure on rivets and screws and things like that. So over time, but it is a roof. It is out in the elements all the time. If you stood out in the elements all the time, I don't reckon you'd be
lasting very long.
Yeah. So basically, that's the maintenance. My favourite segment of the whole thing of our podcast is the horror stories and the hero stories. I've got one thing in mind. I've got a solid one thing in mind, but I just want to see what you have to say. What's your horror story, Joe?
Well, the main horror story I can think of is the standing seam roof.
Well, straight away. Yeah.
So, last year?
Year before.
2020. We had priced a standing seam roof, big 1,000 square mansion out in Chandler, and we weren't the cheapest price.
By $30,000.
And
So it wasn't a sneak. It was 1,250 square meters.
It was decent amount. The client decided to go with the other roofer
And the other product.
and a different product to what we had priced because they were going to get this big massive $30,000 saving. That roofer only done 3 or 4 roofs of that style, whereas
I think they'd only done 2, and none of them was to that level. However, they run the gauntlet.
they had a good crack, and they installed the billiard room. They started with the billiard room to the house, and when they were finished, it looked like a hailstorm had come through. The oil canning that was on the roof was pretty horrific.
Yeah. So look, that horror story. I got the phone call from the client because we'd done the original shed on that in a profile called Maxline, which is now no longer available, and they wanted to go a 465 wide panel on the house. So we got pulled away from the job because of the 30,000, and we're out of it 6 months earlier. So we stopped being engaged with the builder, and then the build went on as per with the other roofer with the information that was gone from there. And there's so much that was done wrong to achieve the good outcome that we ended up achieving, because we went in there, we did it, and we've done the whole job.
Yeah,
you see all the photos on the gallery.
Once they had done this billiard room, the owner quickly was very unimpressed and re-engaged us to re-quote and redo the job. So we got brought back in to rectify the issue. We did a whole stack of testing to make sure that we knew exactly what we needed to do in order to make sure that this whole house was oil can free.
So the contract stated oil can free,
because the manufacturer's recommendations state that, or their manual states that oil canning is an unavoidable yet aesthetic defect only. It does not affect the performance of the sheet, which is 100% correct. It's aesthetically
doesn't
displeasing,
affect the performance, no.
but it doesn't do anything to stop the sheet from removing the water from the roof.
Yeah, so just going to pause on that. So parental advisor, I call bullshit on that. I have to call bullshit on that. That's just a liability removal tag. That's what that is. Yeah. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, 100%. It's a liability removal tactic.
It's a disclaimer.
The problem is that the roll formers, as great as they are,
they're not installers.
They're not the ones actually putting the product on.
Yeah.
So they have to, of course, cover their butt.
Can you imagine installing 1,250 square meters with that customer and her losing her plot at that, saying, nah, rip it off. She wouldn't pay them. It just straight up wouldn't pay them because she said, I don't want oil canning. And they'd go back to the manufacturer, and it would just be a whole crap show. So essentially, we went in there. And did 1,250 square meters of oil can free roofing.
That's it.
On really poorly set up 16mm ply on 900 center trusses, and we're expected to make that work. The trusses were also done at 0 degree flat pitch, so they were actually curving inwards rather than flat. So that all being said, this takes it from the horror story to the hero story. So it was horrible. So I don't know if you guys know, but you're gonna hopefully you'll drive around now and see all the standing seam that looks really bad. When you see a good one, it'll probably have a sticker on it saying it's by MyCladders. If it's not installed properly, it looks disgusting. It'll look good in certain light, but as soon as the sun goes on there, you'll look at it and go, wow, that is just horrific. That is so bad. And then, but if it looks good and the sun's on it and all looks magic, then everyone's happy. Mm-hmm. That's the hero of the story.
It's worry-free.
And this comes down to, so the horror and the hero is basically saying you can achieve, if the job's done properly, then you can achieve the result that you're after. And this is what the constructing, this is why we're giving you the information to build your work of art. And if what you're wanting to achieve needs extra attention, needs extra expertise, I highly recommend you not expect that your builder knows how to do it properly.
Well, again, that comes down to another hero story. Is we had a call from a client where we did use the Maxline profile. The builder didn't have a lot of faith that he could execute, or his roofers could execute that type of profile, and so the homeowner engaged us to install the roof.
Which one was that?
Renovate.
Right. So that one initially was standing seam, was an end seam product.
Yeah.
That was on that. But yeah, so exactly. So what we do a lot at MyCladders is we go through and engage with the homeowners, because a lot of builders just don't understand and they don't want to take on the risk because of there's what we're saying is you have this horror story and a hero story. So their roofer did the right thing and said, look, we're not comfortable doing that. We don't want to do that. The builder's normal roofer. And so the homeowner goes, no, I'm not accepting that. I want this. And the homeowner actually went down to London Road, the one in Chandler, asked that owner who did that roof, and then we were engaged at Burbank to do that job. So so lots of heroes. So if we go to a Coro roof, for example, a Coro hero, sorry, do we have one? All of them.
Yeah.
So there's so many horror stories.
It's easy. There's horror stories where we've come to having to re-roof someone's house because someone's installed corrugated iron on a 2-degree pitch roof.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's happened a lot. The other one is the horror of someone installing trim deck sheets where they put the underlap over the top. So they've had that
installed the sheets backwards, which is going to cause major issues.
Yeah, so I guess there's so many horror stories with all of that we could go on forever. We could probably do a podcast of horror stories
just on that,
based on that. So essentially, what else have we've got to leave these people with something else?
Well, that kind of ties into using different profiles on walls.
Does
these roofing profiles, which we'll cover in our next podcast, dealing with walls.
Is that our next podcast?
It is now. because a lot of builders will see these Colorbond profiles and go, I don't know what I'm doing. The carpenters will go, I don't know what I'm doing. This isn't FC. This isn't what I'm used to installing.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into installing Colorbond
on the walls. Well, talking about that, I think this is a great segue. That podcasters use that word segue all the time. I got to use it. So this is our third podcast. We are podcasters. That segue to the next podcast. So on that note, thank you for paying attention to us today and hopefully not drifting off too many times. With all your different profiles that you can use, with all the things that you can put into your house, talking Colorbond, you've got heaps of options, and don't just be held down to one. And if you need more information, ask your local roofer, ask your builder to ask their roofer, and don't just settle on what they tell you if you're trying to achieve your own piece of art for you to live in. That's basically it.
Yeah, that's it. Hope you guys all have a wonderful day and tune in next time.
Yeah. See ya. So first things first, before we start the podcast, we've got to make sure we have coffee.
I've already finished.
I just wanted to mention about Geelong, because we're in the prelim tonight. That dates this podcast, by the way, 2022.